Imagine being held captive for, what, over 2 years? Enduring torture. Just because of your nationality, who you are.
And then suddenly, freedom. It's almost hard to fathom.
Absolutely. And just this week, September 9th, 2025, we heard the news. American-Israeli academic Elizabeth Surkov is free.
After 903 days. Held by an Iran-backed terror group in Iraq. It's harrowing.
It's incredible news for her and her family, of course. But it really throws a spotlight on this dangerous global tactic, hostage diplomacy.
Precisely. This isn't, a one-off event. It's a tool. Nations, non-state actors, they use innocent lives as bargaining chips to push their own agendas.
It's a high-stakes game, truly. Human lives used as leverage in these, well, geopolitical chess matches. So that's what we're diving into today. We want to unpack these recent, really high-profile prisoner swaps.
And look at the motivations behind them. Why do these groups, these states, resort to this?
Right. And the complex choices leaders face. Trying to bring citizens home, but also how do you stop it from happening again?
That's the tightrope walk, isn't it? Huge implications for national security.
Yeah. And what often gets missed, I think, is how that immediate need, that desire to save someone now, can clash directly with the long-term strategy. Upholding international norms, protecting broader national interests.
Exactly. So we'll explore those geopolitical pressures, the security concerns, how the U.S. and its allies try to navigate this, well, incredibly treacherous landscape.
Okay, so to really understand the human side of this, let's start with Elizabeth Surkov. Her ordeal. Thankfully, it ended positively.
Yeah. She was a Princeton doctoral student, kidnapped back in March 2023 in Baghdad.
Doing research for her dissertation?
Yeah.
And she'd entered Iraq on her Russian passport, right?
Yeah.
Though she also holds Israeli citizenship.
Correct. And her captors, Kataib Hezbollah, a powerful group backed by Iran and crucially designated by the U.S. as a terrorist organization.
So her release was announced just this week. Former President Trump and the Iraqi Prime Minister, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, confirmed she was safe at the American embassy.
A huge relief, no doubt.
But the details, they're deeply disturbing. Former President Trump stated publicly she'd been, quote, tortured for many months.
Awful, just awful.
Her sister, Emma, specifically thanked President Trump and his special envoy, Adam Bowler. Said they made her return a personal mission, along with the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, of course.
Right. Now, there's a layer here, a historical context that's, well, it's significant.
You mean the connection to the group's founder?
Exactly. Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, he was the founder of Kataib Hezbollah. And he was killed in a U.S. airstrike in 2020.
An airstrike ordered by Donald Trump.
The very same. So how does that backdrop kind of influence how we understand this negotiation? It's complex.
It seems almost paradoxical, right?
Yeah.
The former president who targeted the group's leader is now praised for helping free someone held by that same group.
It really highlights the transactional nature of these situations and the adaptability of these groups. They'll engage when it serves their interests, regardless of past conflict.
They see an opportunity, basically. An American citizen held captive is an opportunity.
A clear opportunity, yes.
Wow. Okay, so that complexity. We see echoes of it in another recent case. Evan Gershkovich.
The Wall Street Journal reporter, arrested in Russia, March 2023.
On espionage charges, which the Wall Street Journal, everyone involved, vehemently denied.
And this was huge. The first American journalist held on charges like that since the Cold War.
His release came in August 2024. President Biden called it one of the most complicated prisoner swaps in history.
But there's always a price, isn't there?
Seems like it. Russia's President Putin reportedly wanted Vadim Krasikov back.
A convicted contract killer, as reports described him, imprisoned in Germany for murdering a Chechen dissident.
Which immediately brings up that difficult question, the moral hazard. You free an innocent journalist, which is obviously the goal, the humanitarian thing to do. But Anne Applebaum at The Atlantic raised concerns. A dark cloud, she called it.
Suggesting that, essentially, Putin got a reward for kidnapping an American journalist.
Yeah. So what are the real-world consequences for journalists, for others working abroad? And how does it feed into the calculations of countries like Russia?
Well, that's the agonizing part. People often talk about the no concessions policy, but that policy itself is actually a long-term humanitarian strategy.
How so?
The idea is to prevent future kidnappings by removing the incentive. If you don't pay, if you don't swap, maybe they won't take people in the first place.
So every decision is a trade-off. It's not win-win.
Never. And Applebaum's point, I think, is that even a seemingly clean prisoner swap, it validates the tactic. It sends a message, maybe unintentionally, to other bad actors.
Even if it brings someone home today.
Right. And the immediate impact is real. Elizabeth Buehler from the New York Times, she highlighted the chilling effect on journalism, said the Times no longer sends reporters to Russia. Their Moscow bureau chief, based in Berlin now.
Wow. So you wonder, how does crucial independent reporting survive in these high-risk places if the risks keep escalating like this?
It's a huge question. Does it diminish? Does it adapt? We don't know yet.
Okay, so we've seen the human cost, the difficult trade-offs. Let's dig into the why. What drives this? Why does hostage-taking keep happening?
Well, for state actors, think Iran, North Korea, China, Russia, the main driver is usually diplomatic leverage, political concessions.
Right. They detain foreign nationals, often journalists, NGO workers, academics, often on flimsy charges like espionage.
Exactly. They use them as currency. It's a calculated way to pressure the U.S., its allies.
It's been called asymmetrical warfare, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Where countries may be lacking other forms of power, pariah states, perhaps?
Like Iran, North Korea, Venezuela.
Yeah.
So they use this tactic to gain influence over Washington, especially now in this kind of fragmented post-Cold War world with these great power rivalries simmering.
It's a relatively cheap way for them to challenge stronger nations.
It is. And Iran has a history here, arresting U.S. journalists like Jason Rezaian back in 2014, using that as leverage in the nuclear talks.
And more recently, that 2023 U.S.-Iran prisoner swap. 5 Americans released.
In exchange for 5 Iranians, and crucially, the unblocking of $6 billion in frozen Iranian oil funds.
Which drew sharp criticism. Senator Tom Cotton called it a ransom payment.
Mm.
From that perspective, it risks just encouraging more kidnappings, right?
That's certainly the argument. It feeds directly into that moral hazard debate we were just discussing.
And with Russia, we saw their specific interest in getting Krasikov back. It wasn't just general leverage. It was about retrieving their guy.
Right. It shows a very personal strategic interest tied to their own intelligence operations, loyalty to their assets. It's a specific, dangerous kind of quid pro quo.
Okay, so that's states. What about non-state actors? Terrorist groups? Militias?
Their motivations can be a mix. Political goals, absolutely. Financial gain, definitely. And just spreading terror.
So political, like Iraqi insurgents using hostages to demand troop withdrawals? Or foreign companies leaving?
Exactly. Or demanding prisoner releases. Those Shia militiamen who kidnapped British contractors, they explicitly demanded British troops leave Iraq.
And the financial side. That seems huge for some groups.
Oh, absolutely. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP, kidnapping was basically a business model for them.
A profitable trade, as one source put it.
Yeah, generating millions. Between 2011 and 2013 alone, something like $20 million in ransom payments. That's a massive incentive.
Hamas, too, using prisoner exchanges to free Palestinian prisoners. That boosts their support. Right?
Yeah, achieves a political aim through human leverage.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the pure terror aspect.
Just generating fear, making places too dangerous for foreigners to travel or work.
And often using brutal methods. Filmed executions, beheadings.
Yeah.
We saw that tragically in Iraq after 2004. The psychological impact is hard to even grasp.
Not just on the hostages, but families, negotiators, everyone involved.
And the methods themselves. Arbitrary arrests, false charges, outright kidnapping, torture, as we heard confirmed with Surkov, followed by clear demands. It's a brutal playbook.
All this horror. It did lead to changes in U.S. policy, didn't it?
It had to. After the invasion of Iraq in 2003-2004, there was that huge surge in kidnappings. The sources mention more than 200 foreigners and thousands of Iraqis taken captive by the insurgency then. Many killed, executions filmed.
A horrific situation. So the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad set up the State Department hostage working group back then just to try and track what was happening.
But it was later, under the Obama administration, that things really formalized.
Yes, in 2015. Facing another rise in abductions, particularly brutal treatment of Americans, they launched a whole-of-government approach.
That's when we got the Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs, SPEHA, currently Roger Carstens.
Right, and the Hostage Recovery Fusion Cell, the HRFC. That brought together the FBI, state, justice, treasury, the intelligence community, trying to coordinate everything, recovery efforts, support for families.
So these structures were put in place. Have they actually made a difference? Improved success rates, streamlined things, and crucially, have they deterred anyone?
Well, the goal was definitely to streamline, improve coordination. And there's evidence that has happened to some extent, but the deterrence part, that's the really hard nut to crack.
Because the act of negotiating itself might send the wrong signal.
Potentially, yes. And President Biden took it further in July 2022, declared wrongful detentions a national emergency.
Calling them an unusual and extraordinary threat to U.S. national security, foreign policy, economy.
And he issued an executive order to impose costs, sanctions, things like that on those involved. The administration points out that since Biden took office, 35 Americans wrongfully detained have been brought home.
But we still see that tension. The official no concessions policy for terrorist groups, yet flexibility when dealing with state actors.
Right.
Doesn't that blur the line? Doesn't it open the door to those ransom payment accusations we talked about?
It absolutely does. That's the ethical tightrope. Negotiation is the main tool, often using third-party mediators. Qatar, Switzerland, Oman, South Korea, Germany, Slovenia.
Qatar brokered that 2023 U.S.-Iran swap.
They did, and President Biden stressed cooperation with Germany and Slovenia in getting Gershkovich out. Alliances matter, he said.
And the U.S. does use other tools, like sanctions, the Global Magnitsky Act.
Yes, targeting human rights abusers, corrupt officials, trying to make it harder for them to operate, travel, access funds. But you're right, that perceived inconsistency between how you deal with states versus non-state actors, adversaries can exploit that.
Okay, so stepping back again.
Yeah.
This isn't happening in isolation. We need to see the bigger geopolitical picture.
Definitely.
Anne Applebaum described this network of autocratic states, China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. Not a formal alliance, she says, but they cooperate when it's in their interests.
It's pragmatic, an alliance of convenience. They're united less by ideology and more by a shared goal challenging the U.S.
So what are the implications of that kind of cooperation?
Well, take Russia. Deeply involved in the war in Ukraine, looking to confront the U.S. wherever it can.
And Iran fits into that?
Strategically, yes.
Okay.
Russia would benefit from having Iran act as a proxy, maybe drag the U.S. into a conflict in the Middle East. That would divert American resources' attention away from Ukraine.
And there's evidence of closer military ties now.
There is. Reports suggest the Russians are beginning to help the Iranians with new kinds of weapons. That could make Iran feel bolder, more willing to take risks.
Which could include more aggressive actions, proxy warfare, maybe even more hostage-taking?
It's all interconnected. This network, however loose, poses a significant adaptable threat to U.S. interests.
And these dynamics are playing out right now, feeding tensions in the Middle East.
For sure. The recent assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh by Israel in Tehran, that was Israel making a point, but the fallout
could delay a ceasefire, escalate things further.
Potentially. Steve Inskeep noted it left Iran feeling like they had no choice, really, but to respond. And any response risks wider instability. More instability means more opportunities for hostage takers.
There's also speculation, reported by Vivian Salama, that Israeli PM Netanyahu might be prolonging the war for his own political reasons, avoiding domestic fallout by keeping the conflict going.
That's been reported, yes. And in response to all this volatility, the U.S. is moving military assets, aircraft, warships to the region.
A show of force. To raise the cost for Iran, try to deter escalation.
It's a constant reactive posture, trying to manage crises, prevent things from spiraling completely out of control.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. This deep dive really shows hostage diplomacy isn't just about individuals, however tragic their stories.
No, it's a strategic tool, deeply woven into global geopolitics, national security calculations, state arrests, non-state kidnappings. The motives vary, but the human cost is always immense.
And we've explored that incredibly difficult balancing act. The U.S., its allies, trying to bring people home, that humanitarian drive.
Versus the strategic need to deter future hostage-taking, all happening in this messy, fragmented world with shifting alliances and competing powers.
Every single decision has ripple effects, long-term consequences.
Absolutely.
So a final thought for you, our listeners. As technology keeps advancing, global conflicts shift and potentially intensify. What new forms might this hostage diplomacy take?
That's a sobering question. Cyber hostages, economic coercion framed this way.
And how will nations adapt? How do you protect citizens when the very act of negotiating their freedom might, however unintentionally, encourage future captors?
It demands constant vigilance and maybe a clearer, more consistently applied resolve against anyone who uses innocent lives as political pawns. Something to keep thinking about.